In these uncertain economic times, you've got to do whatever you can to save money. One of our biggest expenses can be our cars, especially when unexpected repair bills hit. Not anymore. If you own a vehicle with less than 130,000 miles, is less than 12 years old, has a warranty about to expire, or even no warranty at all, you could stop paying for car repairs. Roadside assistance, towing, and rental coverage are all included. Don't wait for the next repair. Make one free call right now to see if you qualify. If your vehicle is less than 12 years old, has less than 130,000 miles, even if it's out of warranty, paying for car repairs can become a thing of the past. Call us right now and get your car protected before your next repair bill hits. Get protection and no more repair bills. Call 800-696-1030. Again, 800-696-1030. That's 800-696-1030. 800-696-1030.
Alright folks, this is Rick Robinson with you. I want to tell you about some friends of mine from a company called Security Enforcement Specialists. When I ran my security agency for 12 years, I worked with one of these partners on a daily basis. He's been involved in this agency now, and with his other partner, they do have over 30 years of experience in the private security industry. If you own a business and you need someone to keep you or your customers or residents safe, then I highly recommend contacting Security Enforcement Specialists today. Give them a call at 405-703-1796. Again, that's 405-703-1796. Again, tell them Rick from K98 Talk sent you. Like I said, if you need the help, they are here for you. So make sure that you go look them up, check them out, and see what they can do.
Wrong way. Welcome to the place. Welcome to the...
Joe had huge problems with the IRS.
I knew it was coming. I hadn't filed taxes since 1990.
All the IRS letters coming in added up to a nightmare.
To get up to like $68,000, my heart started beating fast. It's like, there's no way, man. I mean, I ain't going to be able to do this.
Then they stopped his paycheck.
So that's when I started making phone calls and found U.S. Tax Shield.
U.S. Tax Shield went to work immediately.
They just took the bull by the horns. What blew my mind is he called the IRS right then and there.
So why is U.S. Tax Shield A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau? Joe knows.
They saved me a ridiculous amount of money.
If you owe more than $10,000 to the IRS or state, choose the company Joe chose, U.S. Tax Shield.
It was the best decision I made. U.S. Tax Shield is the way to go. Life is good. Thank you, Lord.
Call 800-471-3287.
U.S. Tax Shield. Boo-rah. Yes.
800-471-3287. 800-471-3287.
The internet will never be the same. You're listening to K98Talk.com.
Whoa! Good God, y'all. What is it good for? Absolutely. Now get set again.
For all you live listeners out there, we got a real treat for you. We're giving away a book tonight. We got a lot of great interviews from Value Voters Summit, and Gallo's in the house, and we're going to cause a ruckus. Here we go.
Get ready to fight from within. You're about to go behind enemy lines on K98.
Roger, 3-2. Goliath copies all. Go ahead. Target is surrounded by multiple firms entering what appears to be a residential area. Requesting permission to engage.
From the People's Republic of New York City, you're now going behind enemy lines with Gene Baradelli and Russ Gallo.
And you're now behind enemy lines. Hey there, how you doing, everybody? Gene Baradelli and Russ Gallo here. Russ, good to have you back in studio this week.
Gene, you look a little shango. What's going on?
Oh, it's been a rough day, pal. I haven't been feeling well at all. I've been running ragged for the past 36 hours between local politics, work, and cutting up this audio that we got from the Value Voters Summit in Washington, D.C. that we traveled to just this past weekend. Me and the Vitos and Mona Salama, we hit the road. Got some great audio. For those of you who may have seen on our website, www.behindenemylines.radio.us, that we had some good hits on some audio there, Russ.
I actually wasn't invited, believe it or not.
Well, you were working. So, I didn't want to disturb the job, my friend. But, listen, we got some good stuff coming up. Stuff that you apparently missed. On today's show, we have Dr. Alveda King, the niece of Dr. Martin Luther King, Russ. Don't know if you know this. I'm trying to educate you now. Why are you laughing at me? Don't laugh. It's not. Never mock the host, man.
Don't I hold a position on this show where I would know the answer to that?
It's been a while.
All right.
It's been a while.
Double check, and I want to make sure I still retain that post.
We also have on the show Jason and David Benham, the Benham brothers, past guests of the show. Always a blast to check in with them.
Now, them I don't know. Who are they?
Oh, God.
Only
the guys that you post in pictures and stuff, And then we have some audio from a impromptu press conference we did with Governor Mike Huckabee that we were a part of. Just a little bit of that. And then later on during the show, after you listen to the interview with Dr. Alveda King, we're giving away a copy of her book, King Rules. It's going to be actually a signed copy, Russ, that I personally witnessed her sign. And one of our lucky listeners is going to answer a trivia question and get the book.
And does the certificate of authenticity signed by one Mr. Gene Baradelli come along with it?
Already casting aspersions. I saw it happen.
All right.
I swear. Why would I make something up like that? Come on now. So listen, you haven't been around in a while. The show has suffered because of it. I want you to get us into it right now.
Where to begin, Mr. Gene?
There's so much.
I do want to talk about Russia, but let's start off right off the bat with na 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 hey 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 goodbye Speaker Bannon.
Oh, I thought you were talking to me.
No. What a crybaby, wishy-washy. I want to say so many other words, but I'm going to refrain from doing so. Are you not happy that this guy is gone?
Let me tell you something. When this actually happened, when we were down at Value Voters, and the mood of the place was shock and awe. I wouldn't say happy was the word. I think elated was the word, Russ. The man became an obstacle to, dare I say progress, but he became an obstacle to the Republican agenda in Congress because he was more worried about keeping his job than he was about doing his job, in my opinion.
There's so much to talk about here, and I know we have some time constraints, but I do want to touch on a bunch of areas of this subject. In the past we've actually said compromise is like a dirty word and whatever. I want to clarify some of that argument a little bit tonight. Compromise is not a bad thing in politics. However, John Boehner obviously does not even understand what the word means, and Mitch McConnell, I'm throwing you in there too because you should not be the majority, leader in the Senate at all. Senate majority.
You were right, majority leader. Don't ever doubt yourself, man.
I'm looking at my notes as I'm trying to.
I know, walking and chewing gum. I got it.
So, compromise. What we mean by compromise is that you don't compromise necessarily on your values before you even get to the table, and then you wind up passing something wishy-washy or not passing anything at all. What compromise means is simple. If you think about what the founders were afraid of, they were afraid of an overbearing federal government, which would mean that in order to pass a law, it would have to be something that the majority of the representatives of the people, right, and mind you, back then parties were not that strong, or factions as they call them, the majority of the representatives of the American people would have to agree. So there'd be non-controversial bills that would be passed. Anything that was overly controversial would need to be addressed by amending the Constitution.
And what Russ is talking about, guys, is you don't need to pass legislation to feel like you accomplished something. You accomplish something when you pass something that's on your agenda. There's a difference between just passing legislation for legislation's sake and passing that off as something that's an accomplishment versus getting something that actually is part of your goals because your goals are informed by your core beliefs. And that is what legislation used to be like before this modern day idea of compromise, which is more about pass something, not everybody gets a whole, everybody gets a little part, and nobody walks away happy. But the people that are hurt the most are the American people, once again.
Yeah, because the modern view of compromise is, like Gene is saying, go along to get along, let's get stuff passed. If I have to give up a little here to get a little something there, as long as we get the bill passed. But I want to look at some recent legislation that shows you when the lack of compromise that I'm talking about. Obamacare passed without a single Republican vote. So now, fast forward, the Democrats lose control of Congress. What should rightfully happen to a piece of legislation that was passed without any support from the minority party at the time? Now that the minority party is in the majority, that piece of legislation would be overturned. So it's a non-enduring piece of legislation because there was no compromise and there was no bipartisan support. And I'm not saying that we should compromise on bills that are not popular. What I'm saying is, imagine how small government would truly be if we only passed laws on things that we agreed on between the parties. Would there be abortion funding for Planned Parenthood if we had to agree on it between both parties? No. And there should not be. And now that the Republicans have control of the House and Senate, they should pass a continuing resolution, a budget,
or a standalone bill.
A standalone bill or a budget or a continuing resolution that does not fund Planned Parenthood at all. That's the consequences of losing the majority when you pass legislation that is not popular. So I don't see what the problem is here. And if they pass any of the before mentioned ways to get something through Congress and it got to the president's desk, he would have to veto it. And if he vetoed a funding bill and the government was to shut down, then the president has shut down the government over the issue of abortion. But he doesn't control all three branches of government. I'm not even sure he's in control of the executive branch at this point anymore.
It's absolutely true. But I think this is what the next speaker has to get. Force the hand of the administration to say no instead of you going there and trying to get a little something done. You can always go back and do that later if you have to. But force the hand of the administration and put the onus on them for being a blockade to what the will of the people is. Be the will of the people. Be the will of the people who put you in office. Now, while we were there at Value Voters, the discussion was who's going to be there to take his place. That and how much a penny bed's price is going to go up in Washington, D.C. But I digress. So the two names that Congressman Louis Gohmert mentioned to me in one of our interviews that is uploaded right now on www.behindthemelinesradio.us is that Kevin McCarthy of California, I believe it is, or Daniel Webster of Florida are the top two names that were on the first night floated around throughout the halls of power in Washington, D.C. I don't know if anybody would be happy with Kevin McCarthy. Mainly because he's less conservative than John Boehner. Come on, people. The only saving grace that Kevin McCarthy would have is that he would have more of the ear of the younger, junior, more conservative members of Congress, and maybe you might get a little more done. I don't buy it. To me, it's Staten Island, Russ. And you know what I mean by it's Staten Island? The Staten Island Republican Party here in the People's Republic of New York City, they have a pecking order. They have a line. When one falls down, the other steps up. And it goes according to plan. Kevin McCarthy is Congress going according to plan, regardless of whatever Boehner does or doesn't do. Pecking orders do not equal real work in Congress.
I'll tell you who my two picks are for Speaker of the House.
Can I guess?
Go ahead.
I might be able to guess.
Let's see.
Guess number one, Trey Gowdy.
He's actually number 3 for me.
Oh, really? Okay, so then I'm not going to say Pete King.
Pete King, I hope, loses. I don't even care if a Democrat wins that seat. Look him up. He's a Long Island congressman, rhino, basically Democrat.
It's called sarcasm, pal.
I'm making sure our listeners know who Pete King is. Pete King's a piece of trash.
So, How about Mia Love? Is that one of the
This
two?
fake New England accent or whatever he's got. You got me riled up with King. Now.
Sorry about that. Is Mia Love one of them?
No, let me tell
All
you.
right, tell me
you're
the
never
two.
going to be able to guess.
Tell me the two.
Number 1, Ted Cruz. Before you say anything,
No.
go ahead.
I know the nuance, but you
All
tell
right,
everybody.
Good. We'll say that after. Or Donald Trump. One or the other. And before you people laugh at me or think I'm drunk, you don't need to be a member of the House of Representatives. This debate has actually gone on in our inner circle for a few years. And it's true. Read the Constitution. There's no qualification that you actually be in the House of Representatives to be the Speaker of the House. And I want an outsider. I can't imagine McCarthy doing any better than Boehner. And to be honest with you, I am part of the... I don't want to say Trump fans necessarily. You know what? I will say Trump fan. I'm not a Trump supporter per se, but I'm a Trump fan. I am sick and tired of the political insiders. I don't trust people who have to win elections to make their money. And at the end of the day, I can't see anyone who has to survive in Washington being a Speaker of the House that's going to put things on the table that need to be put on there. Namely, repealing Obamacare, defunding Planned Parenthood, gay marriage or amending the Constitution to put traditional marriage back in, stopping women in combat, and a whole host of other issues that need to be addressed, and need to be addressed soon. We teased it earlier, but I mean, Russia is basically invading Syria.
Yeah. You know what? Like I said, I've been kind of down for most of the day. What is this all about? There's airstrikes going on right now in Syria?
So John Kerry, I think you all know who John Kerry is. He's like a Herman Munster-looking guy, Secretary of State, ran for president, I believe.
All of a sudden, I have a Fall Out Boy song stuck in my head, but go ahead.
So John Kerry and Barack Obama have been running around. By the way, for years, there's a clip out there that I was watching on the news earlier today of Mitt Romney during one of the debates where he was asked, what's the greatest threat to American national security? And he said, Russia.
And everybody laughed at him.
And in 2012, Barack Obama belittled him and said that the 1980s called and they want their foreign policy back.
Well, guess what? Everything that is old is new again, Russ.
New again. So you got Barack Obama. Don't forget Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama with the reset button when they first got elected. Don't forget that.
Oh, was that the time when they tried to say reset, but they said something else and they were made to look very foolish? I seem to remember that clip on one of our past shows.
Very foolish. So you got the administration now. You got Kerry running around in Barack Obama these past few days trying to make sure everybody stays calm. The Russians are, we're working with them. We're talking with them. Then it comes out today that Russia basically, they sent a general to the American embassy in Iraq with an urgent message that said, pull all American fighter planes out of Syrian airspace and basically hunker down your troops wherever they are because we're doing airstrikes. And that's exactly what they did today. Russia has been putting warplanes into Syria. They're doing airstrikes. They're saying they're going after ISIS targets. The administration still refuses to say ISIS and says ISIL. I don't get that. I'm sure there's something behind that, but that's ridiculous. So the Russians say they're going there to clean out ISIS. It turns out that they're bombing areas where ISIS is not at. They're basically just propping up dictator Assad over there in Syria to keep him in power. Now, this administration is so out of touch with reality. So out of touch with reality, Gene. Secretary of Defense Ash Carter comes on TV today. And let me read you one of the things he said today.
Yes, please, would you? And for the benefit of our audience, this is a link from, it looks like defense.gov.
It's from the Defense Department himself. On the day that Russia they haven't deployed troops into the Middle East since 1980, by the way, folks, for you Middle East war fans out there. So, Russia's on the move. Our enemies are on the move. Russia has close ties to Iran, who we just allowed to nuke up, and now they're propping up another dictator in Syria. And what does our knucklehead Secretary of Defense come out and talk about today? He's talking about women in combat. As Secretary of Defense, I'm committed to seeing this through because attracting the best and staying the best means that whenever possible, we must open ourselves to the talents and strengths of all Americans who can contribute with excellence to our force. What the hell is he talking about? The Russians are at war. They're telling Americans to get out of Syria. They did not join the coalition. They're acting unilaterally. And our idiot Secretary of Defense is talking about women in combat? Is this administration serious?
By the way, that was an amazing impression of whoever you were doing just now. I believed it totally. You're absolutely right. Russia begins airstrikes in Syria. West disputes targets. USA disarray. That's the Drudge Report at this present moment.
And what they're saying, because Putin's running around saying that he's hitting ISIS targets, and they're clearly not ISIS targets. They're opposition targets to the regime. Looked up Syria, people, when you get a chance. We've been training rebels. That was the centerpiece of Barack Obama's strategy several months ago. Him and Joe Biden came out and said we're going to train rebels. Up until this point, we spent billions of dollars in Syria. I believe the latest number they have agreed on was we've trained 6 rebels. And if you think I'm lying, look it up. 6 rebels. Lastly on this topic, Gene, Donald Trump on the O'Reilly Factor the other night. He broke his ban on Fox News and went on the O'Reilly Factor. The man was 100% right on Syria. He nailed it. Now, I know there's a lot of Trump haters out there, but Donald Trump called it. You know, Bill O'Reilly and a lot of the neocons out there are beating the drum saying, why don't we do something in Syria? And I want to separate myself from them right now and say that I believe what Donald Trump said pretty much hit the nail on the head. There is no good outcome in Syria. You have 3 factions. You have Assad, who used chemical weapons against his own people, enemy of the United States, terrible human being. You have ISIS, who beheads Christians, rapes little girls and boys, and does all kinds of horrific things. And you have rebels, who we have no idea who they are. We have no idea who they support. But something inside of me tells me that they're Muslim extremists that live in the Middle East. They can't be good. Okay, so we have no horse in this race. So Donald Trump basically said, what do you want us to do? Let Russia go in and fight him. Who cares at this point? He basically called O'Reilly out and said, would you rather America be down there and dealing with this in Syria? And I can't agree to putting American troops in Syria and dealing with any of this. God bless Putin. He wants to take the lead there. At the end of the day, he wants to control Syria. Good luck with all that, my brother.
And do you realize by doing that, Donald Trump just out-Pauled Rand Paul? Think about it.
He did somewhat, and I would love to hear what Rand Paul's response is to any of this. Because I'll tell you who's dead wrong on this, by the way. Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio is clueless on what's going on there, and I think he's showing his youth and immaturity in the race. I'm not going to go as far as to say he's a clown like Donald Trump, because I think he's a decent senator. But on lots of issues, just to stand out from Donald Trump, he's taking the wrong side. And Rubio's wrong on this one. I don't see how, and a lot of people are, John McCain and a bunch of people. I don't see how you defeat ISIS without empowering another enemy of the United States. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Let them all fight it out. Who cares at this point?
All right, time for our first break of the night. Gene and Russ behind me lines. When we come back, we're going to be giving away a book and listening to some interviews from the Value Voters Summit that took place in Washington, D.C. Stay tuned for your chance to win, folks. Gene and Russ behind me lines. We'll be back right after this brief word. Hey everybody, Gene Baradelli here, and for those of you who know me, who have met me at a conference around the country, or have just even seen my photo online, you know I'm not the most fit guy in the world. In fact, exercise and I are not good friends at all. But I'm starting to do it more, and I'm starting to eat right, and I'm going to start taking Diabetics from Green Turtle Bay Vitamin Company. Diabetics is the first FDA-authorized multivitamin supplement for diabetics and for those like me who are predisposed to diabetes and have difficulty absorbing nutrients. Diabetics contains ingredients not included in multivitamin formulas for the general public and is unique for people like me who have diabetes running in their family. So I'm going to start eating right, I'm going to start taking Diabetics, I'm going to start exercising more, and I'm going to take you on this journey with me. That's Diabetics with a K, one of the many great supplements from Green Turtle Bay Vitamin Company. For more information, check out www.energywave.com.
Behind Enemy Lines. Back on the air.
Gene and Russ, back behind enemy lines. And Russ, I know that you missed our trip. It's one of the highlights of our year, really, when we go back to D.C. for the Value Voters Summit. Always a chance to reacquaint ourselves with some old friends, make some new friends. And this time around, Russ, I gotta say, Value Voters Summit, triple the size of what it was last year. Close to 3,000 attendees, a fully expanded exhibit hall, guests up the wazoo. I think we can say wazoo on the air. And it was an overall great experience. We got some great interviews to play and a book to give away, a signed copy of King's Rules by Dr. Alveda King, the niece of Dr. Martin Luther King.
I'm going to put you on the spot here real quick, Gene. What did you do this year, to wash off
Don't go there.
Come on.
To wash off all the Jesus like I did last year? Is that what you're saying?
Did you have to do anything this year? Because I wasn't there, folks, and I wasn't there last year either, but I remember reading a controversial remark that Mr. Baradelli had made last year around this time.
Yes, some haters started to hate on us about a comment I made that was in jest about having too much Jesus in my life at Value Vote or something. It wasn't necessary this time around. It was a great, great time. We had a blast. Did we celebrate John Boehner's resignation in style? Yes, we did. All right. And it was glorious.
I'll get the real story later, I guess.
Off air, pal. Off air. Right now, let's get into the interviews. Here's the first interview I did was with our friends Jason and David, the Benham brothers. And I can say they're friends, Russ, because you know what? They are now officially my favorite interview of all time on Behind Enemy Lines. Genuine guys who just happen to be in the spotlight for, you know, their views, and they've stood up strong for their views. I know we're not social conservatives on this show, but whenever you see someone standing up for what they believe in, you got to support them. And that's why I like those guys.
Hashtag man crush.
Go ahead. And it comes through in this interview. Check it out right now. Gene Baradelli, Behind Enemy Lines, and behind the stage after the Ohio Christian Breakfast with Jason and David Benham. Guys, great to see you again. Thanks for coming on.
Good seeing you too, brother. We saw you out there in the crowd.
Oh, yeah, you did. Okay, I was the one with, like, the third helping of the breakfast back there.
We can't miss that face.
Oh,
it's too pretty.
Wow. Okay, now I'm definitely blushing. So, guys, let's talk a little bit about what you said on stage earlier today. First of all, a huge crowd here.
Yeah, it was a packed crowd. I mean, as a matter of fact, the president of Ohio Christian told us, he said that they had one room, and then they sold out so fast they built up to a bigger room, so they had to actually shift venues, and this one was absolutely packed out. So, I mean, it was great. I mean, people are pretty bothered about this religious liberty assault in America, and it's time for Christians and Americans to step up.
Well, it's definitely an assault on all fronts now. I mean, we see it, and thank goodness it's finally in the forefront of the presidential debates, really, as we're looking to pick our next leader in 2016.
Oh, isn't it crazy? I mean, just imagine if all of these guys were talking like this in 2012, and all of them were running. Now, of course, we had several of them that were, but I mean, this is the issues of our times, especially these social issues in terms of marriage, in terms of life, and all of these things. So where a candidate stands on that is going to determine whether or not they get our vote. And a lot of these Christians and a lot of these conservatives out here, it's the same determining factor.
And you know what? We were here last year, and isn't it amazing how much just this conference has expanded? It's like exploded. When you go down to the exhibition hall, it's almost triple the size of what it was last year.
Yeah, it's grown by, 100 or 200%. And the Family Research Council is fabulous because they're willing to step in and speak the truth. They speak it in love. They're strong on policy in terms of conservative politics and other things like this. Yet there's also very much of a reunion type feel at an event like this. Jason and I, as well as several other folks around the country that have been targeted, we're all here together. We're all hugging in the lobby area and talking and saying, "Oh, so is your lawsuit done? Yeah, well, you know, I lost my bakery, and but I'm still selling." I mean, it's just amazing how all this works together here in D.C.
Absolutely right. And you know, one of the things I can't help but think about is we're going to have a lot of candidates here today, right? And there's going to be some that are going to be just giving lip service to the crowd of what they want to hear, and then there are some that are actually going to resonate and show that they truly believe. Do you agree that there are some candidates up here that are just here for the publicity hit and to move on?
Well, for sure, you know, and I don't fault them. You know, maybe they don't have the same thing stirring inside their heart that we do, but you know, they're here and they're trying to win a presidential nomination. But there are those definitely that have the Spirit of the Lord all up inside them, and they're just going to go out there, and I think that the Spirit that's in them will connect with the Spirit that's in the crowd, and I think it should be a really good day.
Oh, I think it's going to be a great day, great weekend as well. When we last spoke at CPAC, I asked you guys if you guys had a favorite yet as far as who's on stage for the nomination. I'm not going to ask you who your favorite is right now, but you're starting to narrow it down a little bit?
Yeah, we're narrowing it down. We're spending time talking to the candidates. We're also looking at the viability of a candidacy and the folks that can actually be electable. But really where we are resolute in our heart is, where do they stand on life? Where do they stand on marriage? Where do they stand on religious liberty? Where do they stand on this Iran deal? I mean, we're looking at this and defunding Planned Parenthood. These are really important social issues, yet at the same time, I mean, I get it. If they're running for Republican nomination, they're already going to have a general decent understanding of the economy, and they'll vote toward our entrepreneurial leanings. But really, the social issues are the differentiating factor for us.
And it's pervasive throughout every issue. We talk about the Iran deal. There's so many human rights violations going on in Iran right now between, we're not even negotiating to get the hostages out, things like that. I mean,
it shows a hypocrisy on behalf of not only the administration, but just Americans in general. How, I mean, we are demanding, that RFRA, the Religious Freedom Restoration Acts, and all these are terrible, they're discriminatory, and you've got Apple and all these other, IBM, these companies coming in and saying, we're going to pull business out of Indiana. I remember when that happened with Governor Pence. Well, look at these companies have... they actually have offices and locations in many of these nations that are they are terrible with human rights. It's like, what a hypocrisy in America.
You mentioned RFRA. I remember Governor Cuomo from my own, People's Republic of New York State, saying that he's going to cut off business with Indiana, but then he got into a flight to Havana. It's absolute hypocrisy coming from the other side. Jason, when you're looking at the other side and what they're saying, are you seeing any discussion at all about the same issues that we're having here about faith, freedom, and family?
No, I think that they have to avoid those issues. Of course, although we did get our vice president just weighed in on abortion, and I think that his logic and his reasoning shows a fundamental flaw in the way that we see religion. He said that he believes that now life begins at conception and that abortion is probably morally wrong, but that he would never act on those beliefs in terms of utilizing the position of influence and power and authority that he has to do anything about legalized abortion. And so he basically has revealed to us in a prime example of religion without the actions, which basically means you have belief but not the behavior to follow it up, and that's not true religion.
So the other thing I wanted to ask you guys about, of course, the Pope was just in Washington. He's now in New York City. When he was flying overhead, we were actually leaving the state. But I just wanted to get your reaction to what was said, what the Pope Francis said before Congress yesterday.
Refresh my memory.
Sure.
He said a couple of things.
Well, he actually, the one thing I wanted to really talk about is life. When he started talking about life being precious at all stages of life. He didn't really say abortion, but he said all phases of life. So did you take heart in him saying that on the floor of Congress?
Well, yeah, I mean, I take heart in that. If he didn't say something like that, I would wonder, are you serious? But here's the thing. He's nuancing his speech. Unfortunately, if the Pope is nuancing, what's that going to say to the next generation of these younger Christians, these younger Catholics that feel like, well, I really want to take a stand, but I don't want to say it specifically and hit it head on, because we have a lot of leaders that are nuancing. I stand with the Pope on life, but I'm not going to nuance it. I'm going to say it straight out. Abortion's murder. It needs to stop, and we need to stand against it, defund Planned Parenthood, and really be life givers in this nation. And we can't forget the first rule of parenting. What the parent does in moderation, the kids do in excess. So if the Pope, as a spiritual father to the world essentially, kind of takes a nuanced stance on life and on marriage and these things, which we kind of know where he's leaning, but there's not that crystal clear clarity coming in as a leader, a clarion, to give a call, if I can say another C, to go out there and say, hey, this is the truth. This is where we stand. And so if he's going to take this slightly moderate stance, then just imagine what the people following him are going to do. They're going to vacate these areas and then relegate their religion to just a private belief that should not affect behavior.
I totally agree. You give an inch, they're going to take the mile from you. And at this very critical stage in our nation right now, I don't see a reason why there should be any sort of moderation in your views, especially on issues of life, that is so much on the forefront now, given what's going on with Planned Parenthood. And the fact that the Senate didn't vote to defund was just totally abhorrent to me. I mean, this is something I've been talking on the show about for weeks now. Last question I want to get you guys going, because I know you guys have a packed schedule. You're speaking, you have a book signing. I think you're saving a kitten from a tree later on. I'm not sure.
Whatever.
But my goodness, to be a Benham and just running around here, it's got to be crazy for you guys to be here. What do you want people to get out of this conference for those who are not here? give them a sense of the feel that they should be getting from here. And then I want to get into all the plugs and everything that you guys are doing, the podcast, the books, everything.
I think the most important thing that people not attending here we would want them to get is the fact that there are thousands of people that are willing to take a stand, that are bound by the truth, some Christian, some non-Christian, but we're bound by the Constitution. There are conservative folks that are out there that are willing to step in, that are willing to be a voice. And you know what? When one man takes a stand, as Billy Graham said, it stiffens the spine of another. It builds courage in others. That's because courage is contagious. So it's courageous out here.
Absolutely. All right, so the podcast, the book. I know you guys don't like to self-promote. I was listening to the speech. There was no promotion whatsoever. You know, the marketing people are going to get on you about this. Give everybody all the information, websites, all that fun stuff.
Sure. You can stay in contact with us, BenhamBrothers.com. You can find our book there. You can also go to whateverthecost.com. We've got a at Benham Brothers Twitter. We've got Jason B. Benham, David D. Benham, and, of course, we've got Instagram. But we also have an app, a Benham Brothers app, that you can download to Android, iPhone. No BlackBerry. We didn't go that route. Doesn't make sense business-wise. But so you can download our app, and in our app, it has our Bible reading schedule in there. It has weekly Bible studies that we do, and we've got thousands of people that are on this thing where every week they're making sure that they're reading through the Bible. They're making sure that they're learning what God is saying through their weekly reading. And David and I are really trying to call Christians to just go deep with the Lord, get into His Word, and then God will come out of you through your mouth and through your actions in time.
Every time I leave you guys after an interview, I get fuel to go on for another couple of weeks. Thanks so much for coming back on the show, guys. Thanks a whole lot. It's really inspiring all the time to be around you guys.
Oh, man, it's great being around you, too. Good seeing you, buddy.
And those were the dreamy and very passionate Benham brothers, Russ. Did you notice a little similarity between what Russ was talking about earlier about compromise and what the Benhams were saying? I couldn't tell you which one it was, by the way. What the Benhams were saying about the Pope nuancing when it came to talking about abortion, that just gives the other side the fuel to take more than the mile because you've already given the inch. That's what Russ was talking about. It applies to every setting of the conservative agenda, Russ.
Absolutely. And, if we can't get Republican leaders to push an agenda forward to stop the funding of an organization that has been caught on tape negotiating a price for the sale of baby parts. Yes, you heard me right. For the sale of baby parts, negotiating prices. If we can't get a so-called conservative Republican majority in the House of Representatives and the Senate to stop funding that organization with taxpayer dollars, then what the hell are we doing here, folks? What are we doing? All funding bills originate from the House of Representatives, not from the President, not from anywhere else, from the House of Representatives. How can we not stop this funding? And for those of you rhinos out there who are so deathly afraid of the term government shutdown. First of all, I explained it earlier, but I'm going to run through real quick, Gene. Government shutdown, if the government gets shut down because a bill that was passed by the House and Senate gets vetoed by the President, if a spending bill gets vetoed by the President, then the President shut down the government. But for you rhinos out there that are so worried about shutting down the government, well, the Republicans will get blamed anyway. Let me give you a political science 101 fact here, or factoid, if you will. The past couple of big wins we had, or the past really big wins we've had, came on the heels of government shutdowns. In 1995, the government was shut down. And in 1996, Newt Gingrich and the Republican Revolution swept through the House of Representatives. In 2013, the government was shut down. And in 2014, we've secured the House and the Senate. So when Republicans stood up for what they believed in, stood up for their principles, forced the Democrats to compromise by either eliminating something or adding something into a bill, and as a result, the government was shut down, Republicans swept huge victories. Huge victories. So don't be so worried about them, folks. When people actually stick to their guns and show true leadership, the party benefits. So bye-bye, John Boehner, and Mitch McConnell, you're next, buddy.
All right, folks. There's nothing I can do to top that other than to give you free stuff. So here's your chance right now. Listen to this interview with Dr. Alveda King from Value Voters. And what we're going to do is we're going to ask you a question after the interview. The first person to answer the question with an email to my personal email, which I'm going to give you right now, gberardelli@gmail.com, or to tweet it at BEL_radio, wins the book. If it's not during the live show, it can be done on the replay, so we'll let you know if there's a winner or not as soon as it happens. Here's our interview with Dr. Alveda King. Listen closely, because that's your chance to win. Gene Baradelli, Behind Enemy Lines. I'm with the busiest woman at the Value Voters Summit, Dr. Alveda King. It's such a pleasure to finally talk to you. I was just at your table. It's amazing. The people come up to you. It's got to be so gratifying and heartwarming to see the response to you and all the good works that you're doing.
Gene, it really is. I believe that people are drawn to the love of God. And I try to have as much of that available as I'm able to. And just you pour it out. But guess what? When I pour it out, it comes back to me. So it's just wonderful. This has been an exciting conference. It's been amazing. And everybody has just been moving around, saying hello, talking about the issues. But with these new events of people stepping down out of office and all this kind of stuff, so we have a lot going on.
We have so much to talk about. First of all, you brought it up, Speaker Boehner leaving office, kind of a shock to everybody. A lot of the reaction is that Kevin McCarthy or Daniel Webster from Florida is who they're looking at is stepping up at first. I don't know about you, but I'm not really satisfied with just those two choices so far.
We can't keep going with status quo with somebody else who can still toe the same line and do the same thing. And so maybe the message still isn't getting through that we're not going to accept that anymore. We don't want the excuses. We've got to go ahead and elevate and do what's right for America. And that's for the sick people, the old people, the elderly people, the babies in the womb, for everybody. And so as we are continuing to insist on this, then you see things changing.
So you were just recently in Philadelphia this week, and Pope Francis was there. Describe the experience of seeing His Holiness in Philadelphia.
Well, I actually didn't. We kind of passed each other in crossing. I guess the Pope Mobile passed the train.
We were driving to D.C. He was flying to New York. We kind of flew overhead, but yeah.
That was kind of, but I was invited to publish in Inside the Vatican magazine an open letter. So I wrote a letter to him, and I asked him, can the lion lie down with the lamb? And I noticed that he was quoting my uncle Martin Luther King Jr. quite a bit. And so my heart was warmed by his visit, actually.
I think a lot of people found comfort. I know a lot of younger people are being brought back to the church because they're seeing Pope Francis's kindness, especially to the children, which was highlighted throughout his trip throughout the Northeast.
Well, you know, the millennials have responded a lot. The young people, people from across various denominations seem to have been drawn. So I think this just everything that's happening at this time, this moment in time, with the CMP videos, the exposed Planned Parenthood and what they're doing. So many things are happening at once. And I think you have so many candidates in the presidential race, not so many on the Democratic side, but quite a few on the Republican side. I think that people are saying now we're ready for something different. Not change like we were promised for 8 years, but transformation. We want our country to begin again to be that city on a hill, that shining city on a hill.
Absolutely. Now, a lot of the candidates here, some people you can tell truly in their heart believe in a social conservative message. And then there are others, and I'm not going to name names, that come here to get before the crowd, and it was a big crowd here, and have their voice heard. And then there are two candidates that I know of at least, Carly Fiorina, Chris Christie, who didn't show up here. They missed out on a whole lot of education, but they also, I think, are losing out on the three-legged stool of politics, social conservative leg. They're losing out on a whole crop of Republicans that would stand with them if they'd only just pay attention to what's going on.
Well, maybe they want to be what they are showing us. I'm talking about Governor Christie and Carly. I'm a moderate, and that's who I am, and that's what I am. And maybe that's what they want to be true to that. And I'm just guessing. I don't know why they didn't come. I really
You're being much nicer than I am.
I don't know. But but I think that all the messages that we're getting from them give us something to really consider and be excited about again. And that, to me, honestly, feels good. for me to say, oh God, I can actually vote for one of these people. That feels good to me.
It does feel good. It feels good that people are unafraid this time around to talk about these issues. That's the best thing that's coming out of this conference.
Well, there are two people that ordinarily we might call polar opposites, but honestly, Donald Trump and Ben Carson have both demonstrated we're not going to be politically correct. We're not going to step back and say we misspoke. We're going to say what we mean and mean what we say. And I thought that, to me, that's very refreshing to see them do that.
I agree with that as well. Dr. Carson came over to We Are America Radio and gave a great interview, as did you. Thank you very much for that. Let's talk about the book.
Okay.
King Rules.
Well, we'll talk about King Rules, and then we also had Bedrock Truth, 8 principles, uncompromising principles for America, too. And so, blessedly, with King Rules, those are the values that I grew up on. Was I a perfect person? Did I make mistakes? Did I sin and fall short and have to be restored in Christ? Absolutely. Same thing with my uncle Martin Luther King, my daddy A.D. King, granddaddy, our whole family. But we're people who have always loved a perfect God. And those perfect rules that God gave us are in that book. The bedrock principles, those 8 uncompromising principles, the same thing. And so I'm inviting people, if you're here at the conference, great, come by and see us. If not, find us. And these books are just available for you. I wrote them for you, so I'm happy to have them for you.
And we're happy to be giving one of them away. We're going to give away a signed copy of King Rules on the show. The way it's going to work, folks, is you're going to listen to this interview, and we're going to ask you a question about it on next week's show. The first one to email a response that's correct to us will get the book. It's going to be exciting. So, and I want to thank you so much for providing the book for us. And it's so amazing to finally get to talk to you. We follow each other on Twitter, which, by the way, is cool in and of itself.
Yeah, because I
to
can
have
on
someone,
my phone, actually. I can tweet on my phone. I can really do it.
To have someone like you follow little old me on Twitter and to be responsive it's truly a blessing.
Well, we're in this thing together, and you're a brave man for putting truth out into the airwaves. Everybody won't do that. So we have to keep doing that, and the more we do it, we just see that people are beginning to hear truth and respond.
Did everybody just hear that? Alveda King called me brave. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Gene.
I love this interview so much. It's one of my favorite interviews from the conference. Thank you so much.
Thank you. God bless.
And there you have it, folks. Now here's your chance to win. If you were listening closely to the interview with Dr. Alveda King, you heard... Why are you laughing, Russ Gallo? Hold on a second here. Are we getting too real for radio now? Is that what this is?
You quipped of how she referred to you as brave.
Because I do a radio show.
But I was kind of giggling because I think you referred to yourself as little old Gene.
You know what? Okay, you got me there.
Follow little old Gene, by the way, at G. Baradelli.
And follow Russ Gallo at Russ Gallo on the Twitters. And while you're on the internet, because you know you're on the internet, because this is sometimes internet radio, and sometimes AM radio.
And sometimes it's just me and Gene talking for an hour, realizing we weren't recording anything at all.
That has happened, too. Check out www.behindamielines.radio.us. I screwed up the plugs, but whatever. Here's your question, folks, about the interview. Dr. Alveda King was in Philadelphia, but she didn't get a chance to see Pope Francis. But what was she invited to do instead? Tweet us at BEL_radio or email me at gbaradelli@gmail.com. There you have it. First person to respond, either not Russ, stop trying to respond because you can't win. First person to respond gets the book. There you have it. So now, Russ, while we're waiting to see if we're going to get a winner, we also had the opportunity to participate in a very short, extremely short, very tiny press conference with Mike Huckabee. Didn't get to ask anything because they literally dragged him away in under 5 minutes. Shocking, I know. But he was in his glory. This was Value Voters after all. Take a listen to Governor Huckabee. Oh, wait, but before we do...
Yeah, before we do, in the spirit of acting like all the other media outlets, I have a quick question for you about Value Voters. We got to bring Trump into this before Huckabee goes.
Trump was there.
I'd like to ask you a question, because I saw one clip on the news where Donald Trump, I believe, referred to Marco Rubio, Senator Rubio, as a clown. And I couldn't tell, were those boos, oohs, ahs, what were they? What was the reaction to that?
I was saying boo-earns. No, they were boos.
So Trump got booed.
Trump got booed at Value Voters. Not only did he get booed, he finished in 5th place in the straw poll there. Ted Cruz took the straw poll. And Ben Carson was second.
So Donald Trump is not a pious man? Is that what we're saying?
That's what they're saying. Carly Fiorina, who wasn't even there, finished ahead of Donald Trump. And Carly Fiorina not being there, by the way, a big story of Value Voters. She was in Greenville, South Carolina, signing copies of her book and speaking before a crowd of 1,000 people, when she could have been at Value Voters and before a crowd of close to 3,000. But I guess she's just going to be a moderate, or maybe this is the first sign that maybe Carly is not who you think she is.
I've never been a big fan. I agree with everything Donald Trump says about her.
All right, then. Wow. Was that a shoe that just flew by
that
here?
Was a little tongue-in-cheek,
okay.
But go ahead.
Well, listen, back on topic, because we're running low on time. Here's the press conference we participated in. I'm not going to say interview because we were just standing there with Governor Mike Huckabee. I'm going to get his name right sooner or later. Governor Mike Huckabee. Take a listen to this.
Oh, the angry mob.
Governor, do you believe the president this week, when he was with the Pope and he said he supported religious liberty? When the president
Well, I'd love to see a little bit of it practiced. I'd love to see religious liberty practiced for the Little Sisters of the Poor. I'd love to see it practiced for the Green family of Hobby Lobby. I'd love to see religious liberty exercised for Kim Davis and Aaron and Melissa Klein. If he really believes in it, then he needs to turn the Justice Department loose in defending the religious liberty of people whose faith has been completely trampled upon by overreaching government actions.
Do you think that Republicans can nominate somebody who supports open borders when it comes to immigration trade policies? And what do you think about the fact that Marco Rubio is an open borders immigration and trade person?
You know, I never try to second guess what Republican voters will do. I've been wrong several times in the past. I was wrong back in 2008. I was pretty sure they were going to nominate me, and they didn't. And this time I'm pretty sure they will nominate me, and I hope I'm right. So, you know, what they do is up to the voters, and there are a lot of dynamics that go into that. But I'll continue to talk about my issues and not get into throwing rocks at somebody else.
What was your reaction to John Boehner stepping down?
What's that?
What was your reaction to Speaker Boehner stepping down, and who would you like to see replace him?
Well, what I said in my speech, if you heard it, I said, apparently, and I don't know, I wasn't there, but there are reports that he had a very private meeting with the Pope, just the two of them, and he came from that meeting and decided it was time to step down. So I'm kind of hoping that maybe Pope Francis and the President will get together again for a very private, intimate meeting before he leaves the country.
Governor, there have been a lot of conservatives here celebrating the news that John Boehner is stepping down. Do you think that Mitch McConnell should also step aside and let a new conservative
the
come
senators
in?
will make that decision.
But if you had your way...
Would you encourage him to meet with the Pope?
Good question.
But if you had your way, do you think somebody more conservative should take
Look,
over
I'm
the
disappointed in both houses. I'm disappointed that they haven't done what we sent them here to do. We sent them to put the brakes on executive overreach. I was disappointed they supported Trans-Pacific Partnership. I'm disappointed that all of the Republicans who are in the Senate supported that. I'm disappointed that they supported the Corker-Cardin bill that empowered the president to get the Iranian deal through.
So is it time for new leadership in the Senate?
Well, it's time for new leadership in the country. I know that much. And maybe with new leadership in the White House, the House and the Senate will be able to have leadership that they can clearly follow.
Governor, how much of that was their fault?
I'm sorry, what?
How much of that was their fault? Did they overpromise in 2010, 2014 when they said we're going to try to do this to the president? How much of it was their fault that they didn't repeal Obamacare?
You know, I don't want to get into the blame game. I just know that when people sent them here, they didn't send them to give the president more power on Obamacare, immigration, and even trade, and certainly not the Iranian deal. I know on those four areas alone, the president got more power and the Congress didn't exercise much. So, I mean, I'm just looking at what I can see. If there were more things that were under the surface, those things were very much above the surface. We saw them all, and it frustrated the heck out of most of us who had gone out there and helped to get these guys elected.
You know, Russ, that might be the strongest I've heard Mike Huckabee in a real long time. Probably not as strong as he's been since he won in Iowa the last time he ran.
The bar is low. Strongest Huckabee's been. He still won't say Mitch McConnell should go. I bet you if you poll the majority of primary voting Republicans across the country, it's time for McConnell to go. And if the guy who wants to be the leader of our party and the leader of this country can't say that, then it's the wrong guy for the job. One who claims to be conservative, by the way. I'm not going to say that's a litmus test issue for any of our candidates, but if you're running as a person who claims to be a conservative, especially a religious conservative, and you can't say that a guy like Mitch McConnell needs to go, then you're just being fraudulent.
Well, here's a perfect example of Congress playing to the crowd instead of passing legislation and taking a stand. How did they try to defund Planned Parenthood, Russ? Through a continuing resolution. not through a standalone bill that just needed a simple majority. They did it through a continuing resolution that required the supermajority in the U.S. Senate. I wonder if that means Mitch McConnell really didn't want to defund Planned Parenthood. What do you think on that? That to me is what the signal is.
Of course they didn't want to defund Planned Parenthood. The majority of Republicans in leadership positions, which McCarthy is one of them in the House, he was the majority leader in the House, they're liberal on a lot of issues. Or they go along to get along, and that's just as bad as being a liberal in my view, because you have no backbone, no core principle. You have this administration, which every day, Gene, I am believing more and more is actively working to destroy the country. 7 years ago, we used to debate whether they were just incompetent or they might have some nefarious,
personal thing, not really a macro thing, a micro thing, something that would affect them and others. Not like the whole nation would be transformed.
But I'm now in the camp where I think that the administration itself does have an agenda that is anti-American, and the Republicans in Congress are basically co-conspirators. They're complicit at the very least. They're aiding this administration, and they're certainly not opposing it. So, guilt, in my view.
I hear you, pal. Listen, it's been a jam-packed show. We actually have to get up out of here. For all you Al Sharpton fans out there, sorry about that. Get your Reverend Al fixed next week, I hope. When we play some of his greatest hits from his now weekend show. Russ, final thought time. This is where you get to get back up on that soapbox, my brother.
Mark it. I made this prediction before, but it's coming closer and closer to becoming reality. Hillary Clinton doesn't make it the distance, will not be the nominee, and very likely could find herself indicted prior to the 2016 election.
All right, folks. I'm going to just rest on reflecting on the weekend, really. It seems so far away when we were at Value Voters, given the news what's going on in the Middle East and the increasing frosty relationship between our country and Russia. It's a bit unsettling as we end the show tonight, folks. And I think, and I am sorry to say this, it's going to get worse before it gets better, Russ. And I'm sorry to end on a down note, but we want to end on a high note. I believe there might be some new change here in Brooklyn, New York. Why don't you break that news, Russ?
Real quick, I know this is hyper-local, but the Brooklyn Republican Party today has elected a new/old chair to head it up, Dr. Arnaldo Ferraro. Congratulations. Outgoing chairman Craig Eaton, great job. I love you, my brother, and I had a blast.
All right, folks. That's going to do it for us here behind enemy lines. Time to shut it down, my brother. What do you say?
Jesus, shut it down.
And that's the way to end it. After a recap of Value Voters, we are out of here.
Our position has been compromised. It's time to roll out. Report for debriefing at www.behindenemylinesradio.us and look for regular communications via Facebook and Twitter at BEL_radio. You are the resistance. Behind Enemy Lines. A Rock Radio production. Copyright 2015. Back in 7 days. Out.
The leader in talk radio on the internet. Right here on K98Talk.com.
When our water heater broke down last month, it was a nightmare. It took 5 hours for the plumber to show up, and he charged us a couple of $100 just to come out. And then it cost another $1,800 to put in the new water heater. By the time it was all said and done, I felt like I'd been taken. But what else could I do?
The smartest thing you can do is get a home warranty from American Residential Warranty. Their home warranties pay to repair or replace all your major appliances when they break, and they will break, and at the worst possible time. Call American Residential Warranty right now for free information on home warranties starting at just pennies a day. Don't wait for your refrigerator to stop running or your ceiling fans to stop turning. Call American Residential Warranty right now. Ask how you can save up to to 50% on washer and dryer coverage. Just call 1-800-513-6154. That's 1-800-513-6154. Again, 1-800-513-6154. Call now.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it. There to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.